Amazing. Hey there, Dan. How's it going?
Hey there, my man, buddy. Glad to be here with you. Today's a very, very, very special day, especially when we are going to hopefully publish this episode. So, feeling very excited, very happy, and very proud.
Amazing. And do you want to say why that is?
Oh, well, probably most of our listeners might not be able to guess it. But of course, I guess we can give them some hints. I mean, like, think of like a rebirth. Think of like you have a child and then you give birth to that child. And then after a while, there's got to be something to celebrate after a while. What is that thing? That probably is a good hint, I guess, for a lot of our listeners.
Yeah, it's called a birthday, I think they say.
That's right, baby. That's called a birthday. All
Yeah.
right. Very nice. I like it.
Yeah, so it's basically the birthday of BTP. And like, I mean, that's silly because it's not a literal birth, but a figurative one. Basically,
That's
it's an
right.
anniversary. So it's been a year since we started this.
Exactly. Today marks 1 year since this amazing, cool guy named Pujix, aka Pouya, just thought of a great idea to start a cool podcast. And
Thanks,
that
man.
is exactly when I realized, you know what, Pouya, come on. I mean, we might not have the time or something. We're very busy, both of us. But he had a great idea. And guess what? A year later, how many episodes? Probably more than 70 episodes, right?
I
So
believe,
far.
I believe, if I'm not mistaken, this will be the 80th. So 80
80,
episode. Yeah,
80 episodes,
that's
man.
it's
80
insane.
episodes.
I gotta
80
say.
times when we and our guests sat down and talked about interesting stuff. And today marks the anniversary. 1 year, these two cool dudes by the name of Pouya LJ and Daniel Morgan started this cool, awesome podcast. Pretty happy, my man.
That's
Proud
right.
of this whole thing. And I'm very glad to be here with you on our anniversary edition for Beyond the Present podcast.
I am too, and it's exciting. It's super exciting. I'm stoked. I am really happy that we did continue and we kept on going, bringing a lot of cool people, a lot of good ideas, a lot of good topics discussed. I enjoyed myself. I learned a lot along the way, and I'm hoping that we keep going as strong and bringing more interesting ideas, people. And keep the conversation going essentially. So
Absolutely.
today we're gonna dedicate a little bit of time to recap what has happened in the past year in terms of the podcast, the ideas that we discuss, interesting ideas that we discuss, like as a review kind of thing, like retrospect of our past year in a individually, professionally, and in the sense of the podcast. So we're not gonna be just talking about the podcast, of course, because that would be boring. We're going to bounce ideas, interesting ideas that we had from April 2018 to April 2019, basically. That's the gist of
Wow.
it. Yes.
Amazing.
Cool. So what were your, I don't know, can we pick a favorite episode or favorite episodes or something? What was a memorable memory that you might have of the past podcasting year?
First of all, man, this was for me the first experience in podcasting because before that, I was mainly active on
Likewise.
social media for creating posts, but the idea of having a podcast and being able to reach our audience through audio was something that I just did not think of so much because of course, lack of time. And more importantly, podcasting is not what we call basically something you can do by yourself. So it is always a teamwork. And quite frankly, I did not see a lot of potential in terms of having someone to run and co-host the show, basically. But there, basically, along the way came this cool guy named Pouya, who seemed more than qualified to direct and to plan the show and arrange with the guests and all of those things. So at that time, the idea was very, very interesting to me personally, and we gave it a shot. And quite frankly, I'm very happy. A year has gone by. We have talked about a lot of interesting subjects, and for me personally, perhaps I really enjoyed every single show, and we had a great opportunity to have a lot of great guests on to talk about different subjects. And for me personally, I cannot say like which one really was my most favorite because I loved all of them. Every single one of them was one of my most favorite. And but of course, certain topics were quite attractive to me personally. I really enjoyed our discussion about global warming. Because we put a lot of emphasis, especially in our episodic edition, on futurism and a lot of the great concepts that we talked about, including traveling to other planets and becoming, and
Oh yeah.
having new colonies there, and talking about the future of humanity as a whole, global warming, and other future topics. Of course, artificial intelligence, AI. These were
Yeah.
the kind of topics that I found the most exciting and the most interesting. And obviously, I really enjoyed every single one of our Let's Talk edition with you as basically the host. And it was really exciting to discuss those ideas because you choose some very good topics and great questions. So generally, I really enjoyed the experience. And I'm actually kind of curious to know which ones were your favorite.
Yeah, I think you hit it right there. Like, first of all, you're right. It's super hard to pick a favorite or two favorites or whatever. It's not. It's like picking between your kids. I mean, I don't have kids, but I hear it's hard. Either people are
By the
lying.
way, Puja, are you sure you don't have any kids? I'm not sure
Well,
about that
at
one.
least I'm not aware of it.
Girls, ask some questions.
I can tell you this. I don't know if I do.
That's right. That's a much more accurate statement. That's right.
Yeah. So you never know. You never know. That's actually true. And to be honest with you, this literally did feel. I mean, it might sound like a cliche, but it is true. Like the podcast, we put a lot of effort and care into this podcast, both of us. That I think it's fair to say it was somewhat like a kid, a newborn kid. Newborn kid takes a lot of care and time out of your life. You have to pay attention to it, or I mean, it's a kid, so you gotta protect it, right? Make sure that it flourishes.
Course.
So in that sense, it was analogous, I would say, and it was really fun, and I do agree with you. The future centered episodes were all on its own type of episodes, and I really love them, from the AI
That's
to
right.
artificial intelligence. But we also had brilliant episodes that we were discussing mindsets, mental values that we could have or we should avoid. All of those were amazing. So many good episodes, and a lot that I learned. So I think I cannot pick one episode, of course, but it has been a fun journey. Now, so how about the personal life? How first of all, has the podcasting changed how you think about everything? Have you had any changes coming to your personal life because of podcasting, or not particularly? If not, what were the interesting things that you have started doing? Could be projects, could be reading books, ideas, whatever, in your personal life during this past April to April year.
That's right. Well, the year just went by was very, very good in many ways. Of course, let's be honest, the start was a little bit hectic for me personally because I work in the world of international business. And since April, that's exactly the time when Donald Trump began to basically initiate his destructive approach towards international business. A lot of trade wars got started with China, with Europe. NAFTA was basically a huge subject of change. Many issues were caused in the world of international business. A lot of sanctions were basically affecting basically the world. And of course, Donald Trump left the nuclear deal with Iran and then caused some problems with Russia. And there were a lot of hectic issues that took place in the world of international business. And let's be honest, the first few months were quite hectic and tough. And for us, we had to somehow manage, like, oh, what are we going to do about Europe now? What about Germany? What about Russia? So we had to always be on the rush trying to find solutions. But podcasting, of course, what I love the most about it is that I got a chance to just step aside from all those hectic, basically thoughts and plans of business, and just take a few moments, perhaps 30 minutes, perhaps 20 minutes, perhaps an hour, and to just reflect on very interesting subjects in a place hit far less by all of these problems caused by Trump. And that place is Toronto, Canada. So for me personally, it was like a trip, an intellectual trip away from all the hustles and bustles of Europe and Eastern Europe and Middle East and all of that, and even the United States, and taking shelter in perhaps the nicest place left on earth, which is Toronto, Canada, to just simply discuss great ideas. Because you guys are sitting there in that place, You don't have to worry about the damage caused by Trump to the American people. You don't have to worry about all the things he's doing with China and the world. So, and the only problem, of course, for Canada was the NAFTA agreement, I believe, which involved Canada. And
Yeah.
you guys, fortunately, have managed to deal with the problems quite efficiently. So that, for me, seemed like a great chance to reflect on myself, my life, and having great chats and discussions with you and our guests. So for me, it was very nice. The past year, despite having started kind of hectic, things, fortunately and thankfully, got better over time as we managed to somehow allocate different assets to different countries, as I always do. I really believe that if you want to stay safe, you've got to put your eggs in different baskets, and that's exactly what we did. So as we started moving around the world and putting our investment in different countries, things got a lot better. And despite all the challenges, I found this year to be one of the most educational experiences of my life, because not only we talked a lot about different subjects on our podcast, not only you and I both actually, Pouya, began reading some very interesting books, and then we discussed them in a few episodes of our
Yeah.
podcast. I really believe that this year was the year of education and growth in almost any way possibly, emotionally, physically, in terms of my business and my investment. So very, very exciting year. And quite frankly, if that was the first year, I just wonder what's going to be the second year, man. Like, imagine a year from now, we're going to sit down and talk about it. How will that be? I just can't even imagine, because both you and I are experiencing tremendous rapid growth. And that's going to be very amazing for both, of course, ourselves, people that we care about, and of course our listeners on the podcast.
Very well said. I gotta say, and it was amazing, an amazing educational year for me as well. It's actually beyond honest. Like, I could have not imagined so much things I could learn in just 1 year. This was beyond my wildest imaginations. If I were just to sit down and educate myself, how well, not just necessarily, you don't have to necessarily sit down, but you know what I mean, figuratively. So in that sense, I'm on board with you completely. I mean, I didn't have to worry about international business as much as you did. I mean, probably not much at all. So that was not part of my scenario, my narrative, but the education part, 100%, it was extraordinary. Part of it was because of the podcast, because of the guests you have, talking to you, talking to other people essentially, and learning from their ideas, their points of view. And that brings me to probably one of the most valuable lessons that I got out of podcasting, and that was the power of conversation. And
Wow.
I appreciate it more than ever. It's we didn't always discuss the most popular topics. Some people might have not liked it, or they have loved it. But that was the whole point. I learned that we need not to love every single idea. Well, we need to hear them, and we need to discuss them. And the bad ones will and give the process of natural selection. That would be the conversation here. Take care of the bad ones and empower the good ones. And I'm happy that we did that, and I'm happy that we're still doing it, and I hope that we do it for years to come. Because again, this is as civilized people, species, I think that's probably one of the most valuable things we have. Otherwise, we're just ruthless animals that are, tearing each other apart for no apparent reason. And now,
tell that to Donald Trump, please. Tell it to Donald Trump.
That's true. That's part of the narrative, and I mean that's unfortunate. It's not, obviously we're not 100% civilized, but we have come a long way, and part of it was because we were able to, instead of killing each other and ripping each other apart, we're able to discuss and talk about our differences and our things that we have in common. So that part probably was the best that I like, the highlights of my podcasting year. I think like the appreciation that I have for conversation is a higher level that I couldn't have imagined. It would have that value. And personally, as you mentioned, I think the education part in total, I mean, I'm doing my studies in university. Obviously that's part of it, but then the extra books that I would read, the research that I would sometimes do on the subjects that I'm not too familiar with to, come and sit at the podcast. It wouldn't be necessarily extensive, but sometimes I would be introduced to an entirely different world that I have not ever thought about. So that was super good and super interesting. Yeah. So with that, I want to move on to other. So you mentioned books. Is there anything you're reading right
That's right.
now that is interesting to you?
Well, actually, let's be honest. We've already talked a lot about a few books that we actually loved in one of our episodes. We actually, for the new year, I believe it
Correct.
was, we
Yeah.
talked about our favorite books. And currently, actually, I'm reading two books simultaneously. There's a third one as
Nice. Nice.
well, of course, but that one is just an audiobook. But what I've focused mainly on in the past, let's say, month or so is I have now begun to basically studying the Laws of Human Nature by Robert Greene. It's been a while. I
Very.
waited for a
Yeah.
long time to wait for the Russian edition to come out, but I just couldn't wait any longer because the book came out in October and I wanted to wait to read the Russian version. And I contacted a couple of publishers in Russia and I asked if you have the Russian version. They said, no, we don't have it. We have no class for it. It's like, okay, what the hell with it? Let's go for the English one because I generally like to challenge myself with reading in foreign languages. So currently, I am
Fair.
now immersed in The Laws of Human Nature by Robert Greene because in the past, I did go through the book basically using the skimming techniques, but now I'm actually going in depth and I literally even go and do extra studies on some of the iconic figures that were mentioned in
Yeah.
that book,
There's a lot of
including
good figures.
the founder of Chanel, for example. I really like her story, basically, that was mentioned in that book. So the second book I'm currently reading is the second one of the most interesting books by one of our most favorite authors, which you and I both know, Yuval Noah Harari, and that is
Right.
Homo Sapiens. So I'm now reading that book as well. I'm almost halfway through, more than that, because the book is titled A Short History of Humankind, but of course the book is about 550 pages, anything but short. So we're going to have to finish that one as well.
I mean,
And
considering
the
that it's
final book,
been millions of years, well, a couple of millions of years.
that, that's right. And of course, the final book that I'm currently reading is a book about NLP. Of course, I have been studying various aspects of NLP for the past 10 years. So it's a new book that I will
Hmm.
add to my NLP library. And this book is about hypnosis and
Oh
various
wow.
forms of hypnosis using NLP. So these are the three types of books that I'm currently studying right now and reading, and I'm really having a good time. Obviously, since I'm involved in a lot of projects now and we're moving a lot of our assets to different countries, I really wish I could have dedicated an extra hour or so per day to reading because
Right.
now I think my average reading time is about 1 hour and a half per day. And I really believe that you have to read at least 2, 3 hours per day to really, know what you're talking about and be able to make good decisions. But hopefully, as soon as we resolve some of our business issues and find solutions, because literally nowadays, sometimes I get to sit in my office for 1 or 2 hours just thinking about our strategies for the next year, for this one, for that one, how to deal with the clients, how do we attract the clients. And recently, actually, I'm writing a paper regarding the concept of customer acquisition versus customer retention,
Hmm.
which is the paper that I'm currently working on right now. And hopefully I can actually publish it in a journal very soon. And I really enjoyed working on this paper because generally when it comes to academia, I'm a little bit suspicious about the whole nature of academia, but I just, because I really wanted to, study this issue in depth. So in this paper, hopefully I found a lot of great references regarding the issue of whether or not you should focus on customer acquisition or customer satisfaction. Because I remember I once watched a video from Grant Cardone where he said, focus more on customer acquisition than customer satisfaction because just relying on customer loyalty will reduce your overall profitability. So I actually did a research about this matter in the past few weeks to figure out whether or not in business it is best and superior to focus on acquiring new customers instead of increasing customer loyalty. And of course, as always, Grant Cardone was right, and my research proved that actually it's much better to focus on customer acquisition and consider generating customer loyalty as your second priority. So that was also a great thing that happened recently as part of my research and studies, and pretty happy about this matter. And I would love to know about yourself and what you did in terms of your reading and your research, because I know you're a physicist, and I know that you are basically working on writing your book. And speaking of book, I just remember right now, I was actually forced to postpone the publishing of my book, the Polyglot Guidebook, to basically July 7th, because that's of course another anniversary, if you will, another birthday. And hopefully I won't have to move that to July 7th. But the book is almost done, because I did my very best to shrink it
Hmm.
because I know that most of my audience do not want to read books that are hundreds of pages. So I tried to keep the book as short as possible to about 110, 120 pages. And we finished the first draft. I'm now working on the second draft. But as Brian Tracy once said, unless you write and rewrite your book 5 times, that book is not worth anything. So I'm currently working on the finishing the second draft and beginning the third draft. And with my busy schedule, I hope that I can actually finish the book hopefully by July 7th. And we go for the publishing both internationally, digitally, and on paper, basically.
Amazing. I was actually going to ask you about the book. So you mentioned Laws of Human Nature. I'm stumbling through it. I'm slow at reading it because I'm reading a bunch of books at the same time. But so far as I've read, it's amazing. And you're right. I mean, I didn't get to the Chanel part, but the figures that are there, the examples that he puts forth, they're just amazing. And I love this book.
Absolutely.
It's a very thick book. So I give a heads up to people who are thinking of going to pick it up. Is that even going to hurt your hand if you hold it?
Guys, this is a very long book.
Yeah.
I was because I actually had to go on Audible and get the audiobook version. You see, the average length of an audiobook is 7 hours or something. Mm-hmm. And can you guess how many hours this audiobook actually lasts?
No clue. How many?
29 hours.
Wow, that's
unbelievable. That's like it's 3-4 times longer than your average audiobook. Yeah. And actually, I got it on Audible, and very high quality, very good narration, and I'm really enjoying it.
Yeah, Audible is the place to go for audiobooks. I love it. It's super good.
Well, actually, I use two apps. I use two apps. One is the audiobooks app, actually, and one is the Audible. And the difference is that I think audiobooks is a little bit easier sometimes because both of them have a monthly membership of, I believe, $15 or $20. And by paying for one of your, basically each month by paying for the membership, you also get a free audiobook. That's like their motto for business. So if you generally are new to basically audiobooks, I recommend Audible because it has all the features. But if you're a bit more advanced, I recommend using Audiobooks app, which is also a very good app because generally the prices there are actually less. So you can find books at a lower price there. And I found the overall interface to be also very interesting. But overall, I'm using both Audible and Audiobooks apps all the time, and I'm really enjoying the process.
Amazing. Good to know. And yeah, I mean, on my part, I similar stuff going on. I'm doing a bunch of self-driven, quote unquote research. It's not literally research. I'm basically practicing stuff. So I'm doing some analysis, if you will, because I'm really hesitant to call this research. So that's pretty fun. That's a lot of good.
Is that going to be a part of your book, by the way, Pujix? So you can include that in your future book?
It could be. I didn't think about it, but it could. It could be part of it. I don't know. We'll see.
That's right.
But it definitely could be part of that. It's been going really well. I mean, I'm done with school this semester, and the summer comes, and I'm going to take 1 or 2, so it's not a lot. But I have a lot of personal projects, and I'm working with a friend at the same time, doing a lot of good stuff that I can't go into detail per se because for some of them it's because they're very very in their infancy, so it doesn't make a whole lot of sense to talk about them. Some of them are a little bit involves business ideas, so I can't discuss it for that. But it's
sorry,
really
guys, you can't steal a patent. Sorry about that. We got them. Yeah, you want to steal our ideas? Go F yourself.
Yeah, well, it's actually not even my ideas, so that's even worse because if I blabber, then somebody else is going to be pissed at me. So I'm sorry.
That's right. Business secret. So back off.
Yeah. So at the end of the day, it's amazing. It's going super good, and yeah, it's a lot of it's been an amazing year all around. I mean, it had its bumps, as you mentioned, like you were talking about your personal endeavors, specifically with international business and all the international climate that has been created since Trump around international business, and it's not been fun. And I'm sure you had days that you were kicking the chair and cursing at the wall or something like that. I mean, that's just like the picture that I'm painting, not literally.
I generally don't like to curse the wall. I actually prefer to punch somebody, but generally I prefer to avoid that.
Yeah. No, I was like, as a figure of speech, not literally.
That's right. Although I think it's a lot more civilized to curse at the wall because there's going to be more victims.
That's true. I mean, you can also punch the wall. You're going to hurt yourself, but you can punch.
That's sometimes because if you punch it a little bit too hard, you might actually break something. So it's best to just avoid it.
Yeah, altogether, just cursing. Right. Yeah. Okay, so my point being, I'm sure you had your hardships, and at the same time you're talking, and based on what I'm getting at least out of what you're saying, that is, it's been amazing, and that's part of the point, I think, right? Because never, and first of all, nothing ever goes completely smoothly, and thank God
That's
for
right.
that, because it would be extremely boring if everything went absolutely smoothly. It would be just like, oh fuck, what else? This is so boring.
Exactly. You see, Pooja, that's exactly the problem with a lot of us. We hope and wish that we had no problems. We hope and wish that all the problems went away and we had all the free time in the world and we had no job and no task. But ironically, that will be the worst thing possible for the human psyche, because it is proven in research after research that the human mind is teleological in nature, in that it always needs to have a target. It
Right.
always needs to have goals. And I really believe that these problems and difficulties and challenges are really nothing more than gifts. Gifts that can allow us to direct our attention to solve real problems and to acquire flow and happiness in the process. So definitely, I'm with you on that one. We really need to focus on being able to appreciate our problems and grow with them. I remember once I was watching basically a speech by Tony Robbins, and he said, who in this audience likes problems? Raise your hand. And everybody raised their hands. He said,
Yeah.
bullshit, you're lying. You don't like the problem. You like the problems that you want, not the problems that you don't want, but you need both types of problems. And I really agree with him. I really believe that if we had no real problems imposed on us from the outside world, then obviously we would be a lot less happy about our lives, because now all of a sudden we do not have the opportunity to grow as a result of facing with challenges and difficulties that are not pleasant. And I think that's part of basically the process that it takes to develop human character. And I really believe that facing these challenges and difficulties is the best and surest way to build character.
Very well said. And now let's transition to what is going to be very, very briefly the future of BTP from your point of
That's
view.
right.
Yeah.
Well, first of all, I'm very happy with the fact that our B2B podcast is a very broad podcast that has different types. I mean, as of now, officially, we have our episodic edition, which is where you and I, and we're involved with one third guest, and we talk about different subjects. We have, of course, the Let's Talk edition, which you and I talk about different subjects. We have the solo edition, where I talk about personal development. At the same time, we also have the Polyglot edition, which is similar to solo
Very good
edition,
one.
with one major difference, and that is it's only about linguistics, language learning, and no personal development involved, just language learning. And of course, we have a new edition, which I'm pretty sure our listeners will soon find a new episode about this matter on our website, and that is the interview edition, where you actually sit down with a guest and go through a very in-depth type of interview one-on-one, because on our episodic edition, we usually want to keep our shows to no more than 30 minutes. So we don't have a lot of time to delve deep. But in the interview edition, you actually spend quality time with your guests and you ask very deep questions, so our listeners can actually get into the minds of our guests. So having all these different types and editions in one podcast, I think, is just wonderful. Maybe even in the future, we'll come up with some other types, and we'll officially break the record of having so many different subtypes in a podcast at some point in the future. But generally, I am very happy about this matter, and I'm pretty sure that B2B podcast will continue for years to come and will be a great source of motivation, inspiration, and education for our listeners.
Yeah, precisely, and that's part of how I think of BTP. It's basically in a classical way of thinking about it. It's basically a channel that you tune into, and then there are different things on that channel, different times that you can actually listen to in this case. So yeah, it's we have different editions, and that's for a reason, because if somebody is interested in language learning, then they know where to go. They don't have to browse through every single episode. And no, it's fairly straightforward, and we'll definitely try to make it even easier to navigate later on on the website. Some ideas going around, and yeah, you never know. We may come up with new editions, different versions of different categories that we can actually add to the pack. And you're right. Maybe we break a record. I don't actually know if there's a record there, and I don't know if what is the number, what is the cap. But who knows? We're gonna do our thing, and if we break it, great.
You
So
see, man, I still remember our first day when we put the first episode on. We had like, I don't know, 16 views or something on the first day, and now we've had thousands of views ever since. And I remember I told you that I'm going to 10x all of these, and fortunately, we have already 10x our basically overall results multiple times, and we have
yeah.
fortunately managed to acquire listeners, wonderful souls from around the world, from different countries and continents, who are listening to us every episode. So we definitely have a lot of great plans at some point for an overhaul of our website to make it easier and more user friendly in the future for everyone to find and have access to the older episodes, in order for basically our listeners to be able to find, like, okay, I need self, I don't know, motivation. Here are the episodes about motivation. Oh, okay, I need, for example, language learning. So here it is. And we will definitely find some ways to make it more user friendly and to create the categories where our listeners can not only listen to our newest episodes, but also go back and even sometimes go for the review, because I really believe that in some of our episodes, the things we talked about are not the kind of things you want to just listen once and just get it, because they are not necessarily pure information. They are material that need to be reviewed again and again to somehow motivate you, to give you the right mindset, whether it's about, I don't know, how to persist in tough situations, whether it's our episode where we talked about the book, Ryan Holiday's book,
Yeah.
basically, and how to somehow focus your attention on keeping going forwards, because we need this. I mean, we need motivation. So a lot of our episodes are not the kind of episodes you just want to listen once. We are not freaking Fox News where you just say, oh shit, all right, got it, turn it off. We are not CNN. The stuff that we offer are the stuff of education and motivation. So you probably need to review them a couple of times, especially some of our episodes which are about the notion of success and motivation. So for that reason, we definitely are going to hopefully create that overhaul for our website as well. But obviously, we're always open to suggestions as well as topics offered by listeners.
Yeah, that's true. We appreciate your feedbacks, and it's definitely useful. Some of you who know me in person actually come and share that with me personally. I'm sure that's true of you, Dan, too. But you're welcome to do that. That's great. But if you don't know us directly, you can always leave comments in the comment section. We promise we're gonna read them. It's not like it's gonna
That's
go
right, for sure.
unnoticed.
That's exactly right.
So yeah, that's definitely appreciated. And uh, as always, it's useless. Well, not necessarily useless, but it's weird and not as much fun if we're just talking into empty space. So you guys actually do make us. You're part of BTP in a sense. If you're not
Absolutely.
there, we're not.
Absolutely.
We're nothing.
Every single listener of the BTP podcast is a part of the BTP family, and we would appreciate your ideas, thoughts, and comments. We definitely look forward to hear them.
Precisely. And as we're closing to the end of the show, do you have any final comments, thoughts, ideas?
For sure. First of all, I would like to thank you, Pujix, for putting all the efforts to managing all of this thing. Because, as you know, I'm a little bit busy, so we definitely need someone who can manage the show, arrange it, organize it. So, first of all, I would like to thank you, Pujix, for putting 1 year of hard work,
Oh,
despite
thank you.
all of your, I don't know, studies and work and all of those things. So, first of all, I'd like to actually thank you for all the hard work that you're putting in, for designing the logos, for designing the photos and the posters, and doing basically all the web work, and also for even helping me set up my website. So you are the tech guy, you are the what do you call it, the nerd guy, the geek guy who knows everything about everything and all the technologies. So first of all, I'd like to thank you for all the hard work in the past year, and just really congratulate you for that perseverance. And I'm pretty sure that basically our show is going to be greater and greater over time because of your help. Secondly, I'd like to thank all of our
Appreciate it.
listeners for from all around the world who actually tuned into our shows in the past year, and who listened to our ideas, and who supported us. We received some great comments, great feedbacks, both on social media and, of course, on the website. And we really appreciate all of our listeners. Although I have one simple problem, and I'm really pissed off at the fact that we have more listeners in California than we have in New Jersey and New York. It's not very cool, but overall, generally, it's very nice and very exciting to have the experience. So I want to thank all of our listeners for tuning in to all of our programs, and to being inspired, and having basically we have really this is like a true sense of honor and a true sense of pleasure to having had basically the chance to motivate our listeners to perhaps sometimes share some good ideas and educate them on certain subjects. So that's definitely it. And more importantly, I really believe that I would like to somehow express the fact that we are just getting started, and people like Pujix and I, we are 10x guys. So people who are committed to 10x, they understand the importance of constant and never-ending improvement in all areas of our lives, including the podcast. So whatever you've had until today, you will probably have much more and at higher quality in the future. And I'm pretty excited and happy to have first started this podcast with you, Pujix, and more importantly, having gone through this journey for 1 year. And when you called me today and said, dude, it's the anniversary, I just felt so happy and so amazing, because that's exactly what we wanted to do. And I'm so happy to be here. And definitely, we look forward to having more guests on our future. We'd like to have more content covered in different areas, and we might even have some new ideas in the future. And generally, I'm very happy with this matter, and hopefully we're going to just this is like not the anniversary where it's like, okay, it was good. We are always committed to getting better. And I really believe that if you are now listening to us, you probably share our idea that we should always get better, and you should always hustle and keep working and keep grinding and keep pushing in order to make things happen. So definitely, I hope that our spirit, the spirit of constant improvement and development, hard work, dedication, hustle and grind, and 10x obviously has reached our audience, and hopefully we'll do our very best to continue on this path and to hopefully keep inspiring, motivating, and educating our listeners in the future.
Very well said. I couldn't have said it better myself, and I appreciate the compliments. Of course, I'm sure you know that this is a mutual feeling and appreciation, and this couldn't the amount of contribution that is of yours is obviously immense. Like, you say all these things about me, but
I appreciate it.
Yeah. So that's that, and I do agree
I'm
with.
pretty sure I couldn't have done it without you, buddy. I'm pretty sure I could have done it without you. So definitely, thank you for the compliments. But this was teamwork, and it was very good. It was teamwork at its best.
Amazing. Yeah, that's true. That's actually true. And I agree with you. This is an ever improving contest. We are committed as always, and we there's only one way to go, and that's to just get better and go forward. And with that, we come to end of our anniversary edition of BTP podcast. And until seeing you on a later episode, have a good one.